The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The Derbyshire Dale series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales again, folks. Now, yesterday, if you watched the Kerbar episode, you'll already know I sort of chickened out of all the gradients in that village. Can't really avoid them in this place, though. If you want to walk around this one, you have to face some hills. Let's go. This is Froggit. Froggatt, Frog Cottages. In the Dales today, we're taking a look at a small village that lies on the A625, the road to Sheffield. This is the lovely Froggatt, whose name sounds like something to do with a jumpy amphibious animal. It's actually not wrong. Froggatt means frog cottages because it's believed this is where a lot of them could once be found along the damp edges of the River Derwent. In 1203, Froggatt was recorded as Froggate, suggesting this was originally Frog Street. Later it was called Frogcoats, so you can see where the cottages part comes in. Froggatt used to be part of the manor of Baslow, but in the 13th century Baslow was divided into two parts. One part went to the Vernon family and the other to the Bassets. Froggatt would fall within the part owned by the latter. As a small village today, Froggatt is one of those that can be easily walked around, despite the fact there are some hills involved. It has just the one place of worship, a former Wesleyan chapel. It also has a pub called the Chequers Inn. Where the River Derwent passes through the village, there's also a notable bridge, one which has two arches of differing shapes and sizes. Towering over it all is the huge Froggit Edge, another of the gritstone escarpments running north from Baslow to Hathersage and beyond. At the top of the crag is a heather moorland, often covered with purple bloom at this time of year. So this one should be pretty quick, all things considered. We don't have a lot of walking to do, and it's a nice, easy route. I wonder, are there any frogs out here these days? You never know. I'm sure if one does appear, it'll be something to croak about. Let's go. Froggatt, as we know it today, has been here since at least the 13th century. The name derives from its low-lying and once damp situation in the Derwent Valley. Frogs loved that, it seems. The early settlers in the village lived within two farmsteads and a number of gritstone cottages. By the 17th century, Froggatt was a small hamlet. The drainage was good, the soil was rich, and there were many springs that yielded good water. The oldest property still standing is Derwent Farm in the centre of the village, dated 1653. Coming from Kerbar along the A625, you could so easily miss most of Froggatt if you don't know where to go. Froggatt sits on the A625, yes, but most of it is on a minor road just off that. Froggit is situated beneath the gritstone escarpment of Froggit Edge on the well-wooded banks of the River Derwent, between the villages of Grindleford and Carver. Like Kerbar, it was once owned by the Duke of Rutland, who, 200 years ago, had 17 cottages built here by some local stonemasons for some of his workers. Some of those original cottages are still standing, several of which are now listed buildings. Froggatt hasn't expanded much since those times. It has a smattering of newer houses which have filled in gaps here and there, but for the most part it's still the same village as it was all those years ago. Any sort of building expansion would be tough out here anyway. Froggatt's position on the Derwent Valley slopes isn't the easiest task for any would-be house development plans. Well, it's not an easy start to this walk around because first job is to use this footpath which links the old, the main road through Froggatt to the other main road through Froggatt. That'll make a bit of sense to you in a moment. The trouble is, this path is really overgrown. There's nettles all over the place. It takes us though to the pub, the Chequers Inn. That is one of the hardest paths I've ever had to follow. To make it even worse, halfway down there's a dry stone wall which has fallen over. I had to climb over that, which wasn't easy. Anyway, I should be back on terra firma now, because here's the road. So up these steps, let's go and find this pub, shall we? I fancy a pint now after that. Froggatt isn't laden with a lot of landmarks, but there are a few. It has one pub, namely the Chequer or Chequers Inn, and that's on the A625. Let's have a look at it. The earliest reference to a building on this site dates from 1591, when a man called George Marples and his family resided here. Originally 4 17th century cottages, the Chequers Inn is now an immaculately maintained hostelry and a favourite with walkers and tourists exploring the Peak District. There are still reminders of the pub's past, thanks to an equine mounting block outside the pub and Welsh dresses and settles in the bar. There's even a secret woodland garden at the back. It's believed that Jacob, one of George Marples' children, opened the first alehouse here. Not much is known about it until 1735. That's when the present inn was opened by Thomas Marples, and by the late 18th century it had become of some prominence. It was during this period that body snatchers from Eyam would call into the pub for a flagon of ale as they made their way to carry out macabre deeds in the graveyards of Sheffield. There are no such people these days, and even if there was, this pub wouldn't let them in. Nowadays, the Chequers is a bustling, stylish pub with no tolerance for that sort of riffraff. Owned by the Tyndall family since 2002, the Chequers is ideally positioned to explore the Peak District by car, on foot or by bicycle. It has a dog-friendly area adjacent to the bar which welcomes the well-behaved. And the dogs are welcome too, if they're nice. To get to our next landmark, we have to use a footpath that will take us from the pub to a minor road. Between the two is a blanket of trees. Sitting below the crags of Froggit Edge on the valley slopes heading down towards the Derwent is a forest of birch trees, and this path winds its way through part of it. Paths originating on the crags making their way through these trees are common. Under your feet is gritstone, which is often worn away thanks to footpath erosion. That means when you use them, you find yourself walking on a lovely warm-coloured sand, a notable characteristic of this part of the Peak District. The fact Froggit has a covering of trees is not a coincidence, by the way. The leafy nature of the village is the result of a bequest from a Lady Riverdale. The bequest saw 16 acres of woodland given to the National Trust in memory of her parents, Charles and Josephine Bingham. The 16 acres would go on to be known as Froggit Wood. The wood is a truly peaceful and secluded spot, affording good footpaths to Nether Padley and Grindleford Bridge. In the springtime, it's a joy to see the floor covered in bluebells. This path isn't very long, and no sooner have you entered the wood, the road appears at the other end. It's time to check out what the Derwent looks like here. Okay, we've reached the road again, and behind me there's a house called Riverside, a very appropriate name actually, because the Derwent is very close to us now. If we continue down this road heading north, the Derwent will appear on the left hand side, and the river of course is very interesting. We've seen it a few times, the Derwent, around here, but we're interested in the bridge here. Froggatt sits close to a sharp meander in the Derwent. Where the river almost touches the road, there's a small bridge, but this one's interesting thanks to its shape and size. It has 2 arches, both of which are different, but they do the same job. The bridge was built in around 1653. Its main job is to provide a passage across the Derwent to the villages of Eyam and Stony Middleton, but it also, by default, gives Froggatt access to Stoke Hall. Stoke Hall is a fine house once lived in by William Cavendish, the man who spent nearly £1 million losing his estates in the Civil War. Stoke Hall was built using stone from its own quarry, still worked in the woods nearby. Across this bridge from Froggatt, the road leads up to an old toll cottage by its side. Stoke Hall has had many incarnations and many owners over the centuries. The first was Gerbert de Stoke in 1204. The present hall was built in around 1757. It was designed by James Payne, although he had some help from James Booth, the gifted Stony Middleton builder who contrived the octagonal church there. It passed through the ownership of a succession of Sheffield businessmen before being turned into a hotel and restaurant for a while. It was once the seat of the Simpson family too. In the 19th century, Stoke Hall was allegedly the scene of a murder when a servant called Flora was brutally killed there. Her employers erected a statue named Fair Flora to her memory. For a while, it was reputed to move positions in the woods. Her ghost is said to still haunt the hall to this day. And if you stand on the bridge, it is possible to see the top of Stoke Hall from here. You can't see much of it because there's a load of trees, generally speaking, in the way, but it is there. I'll try and point it out to you. It's just there, in fact. Now, that actually falls within the parish of Grindleford because the Derwent here is the parish boundary. We'll talk a bit more about Grindleford, though, tomorrow. We have Froggit to finish first, so let's do it. Now we're into the main village cluster, defined mainly by 18th century stone-built cottages that form a delightful ensemble. The least pretentious building in Froggit, standing close to a bend in the road, is a Wesleyan Reform chapel, the only place of worship Froggit has ever had to its name. Its sheer undemonstrative charm is wholly appropriate. It bears the date 1832, but the Methodist Reform movement was only formed in 1859. That means this was something else beforehand. In all likelihood, this little building either began life as a barn or something similar, or perhaps it was a mainstream Wesleyan chapel. During its time, it's played an important role in the life of the village. It's part of the Bakewell Wesleyan Reform Circuit. Adjoining it was presumably the former manse, a very early 19th century building with a pair of listed 17th century cottages beyond it. So from this point onwards, Froggit is all residential. It's basically 3 streets: Moorlands Lane, Malthouse Lane and the Green. Let's wind our way through these back to the start. This is where the hills come into play, because at the end of this walk on Moorlands Lane we are climbing a very steep hill. You may have noticed I'm zigzagging across the road here because this makes the gradients a little less severe. On the Strava map it's going to look awesome at the end of this episode. Now, this isn't the biggest hill around here by any stretch of the imagination, because Froggit of course has another edge like the one we climbed yesterday in Kerbar. Let's talk a bit about that. To the north and east of Froggit is the massive Froggit Edge, another gritstone escarpment similar to the one at Kerbar which we saw yesterday. The name Froggit Edge applies only to the northernmost section of the escarpment because the middle and southernmost sections are Kerbar Edge and Baslow Edge respectively. In Froggit, the edge can be seen as rocky crags against the skyline. At the top is a managed heather moor, which is often coloured purple with bloom in late summer. Part of the moor management involves periodically burning sections to discourage reforestation and promote fresh heather shoots. As with many of the gritstone edges in the Peak District, Froggit was used as a source for making millstones. A number of half-completed ones can still be found at the bottom of the edge here. Froggit Edge is frequented by rock climbers and hill walkers throughout the year, much like the edges at Kerbar, Baslow, Birchen, Dob and Garden. Froggit Edge in rock climbing circles is seen as the second most popular of the East Moor edges, second only to Kerbar. Due to its position, it avoids the worst of the weather too. Froggit is famous for its slabs. Joe Brown popularised two well-known classic routes up Froggit Edge in the late 1940s, named Sunset Slab and Three Pebble Slab. One of the best-known climbs at Froggit Edge is called Downhill Racer, a smooth and near-vertical 17-metre slab of gritstone first climbed in 1977 by Pete Livesey. When compared to curb art, climbing Froggit Edge is not considered difficult, but even so, a fall from it would still definitely result in some injuries. Now, Froggit Edge is often visited for another reason. It has a stone circle. Somewhat damaged and embanked, this circle stands just a few metres east of the edge. It's located towards the western edge of the plateau of land known as Stoke Flat, which gives the site its alternate name of Stoke Flat Circle. Likely Bronze Age date-wise, the circle consists of 14 small Derbyshire gritstone blocks, most about half a metre tall, with only one that reaches just over a metre in height. The stones form a double ring with 7 set into the inner edge and 5 set into the outer edge of the bank. The whole monument is about 15 to 16 metres in diameter. Several authors suggest that there were originally 16 to 18 stones here. Peak District archaeologists have suggested several celestial alignments which would explain their arrangement. As the site is located on land that dips sharply westwards with the horizon to the east blocked by higher ground, the position is believed to involve the setting sun over Eam Moor. However, the most intriguing alignment from Froggit Edge involves not the sun, but the midsummer moon, and it might be connected to another circle we already know. When seen from the circle, the moon's maximum is set between the stones of the southern entrance and directly behind the distant henge and circle at Arbour Low on Middleton Common. Arbour Low would already have been several hundred years old by the time Froggit Edge gained this circle, but the design and orientation of it is likely to have been a deliberate act. These small stone circles were designed to serve the needs of local communities, but farming groups out here were not isolated, they were part of a larger whole. Perhaps they viewed themselves and other local communities as having a shared regional identity and a set of belief systems. That would explain the connection between Froggit and Arbour Low. That will do us for Froggit. We didn't come across any frogs, which was mildly disappointing, but never mind. It's a great little village and very popular for many reasons. The same can be said for our final parish this week. The last one in the northeastern corner of the Dales sees us take on a village famed for a gorge. See you there tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.